All right, all right. Welcome back. Now, I was doing the air drums. See, that's what I was doing because I'm thinking about this podcast and I'm really fired up about it because what I'm going to talk about today here on Retro Recon, that's the working title of this podcast. And by this point, I guess I'm just going to leave it to be the title, I suppose. Anyway, so what I was thinking about is talking more about some more retro type things, and that involved music. Okay, music. Specifically, what was the best music to ride around in a parking lot? Cruising, right? All right, so the best music that you could have like at the right time as you're turning the corner, like for example, Burger King parking lot was always a go-to for us way back in the day. And you'd come around the corner and you wanted to have that right music as you turned that corner. You'd want to have that right song at the right moment, just that riff that just woke everybody up. They know you're there. You know what I'm saying? They know you're there. So here it goes. What was the best cruising parking lot type music that you could have way back when in the day? Now, that's a good question. And of course, there's not really a right answer to this, but I was thinking about it the other day and I'm like, well, wait a minute. I was listening to some music, a song came on the radio, and, it'll take you right back to a certain part of your life sometimes when you hear some songs. And this one did. It was, to me, I usually will say if there's a song that exemplified the 80s, it was this one. Well, if you want to know what it was Sweet Child of Mine by Guns N' Roses. Now, that's just me. Everybody has a different opinion on this. But that sort of, I was like, wait a minute, man, I remember back in the day, we'd, rock and roll going up and down the Center Point Parkway, if you know about that, Burger King parking lot in Gardendale. There was a lot of different places where people used to hang out. Bama 6 parking lot. Yeah, that was a good one. There's a car wash over in Center Point, used to be a big one. But you had your music that you would listen to, especially if you had the right system in your car. The Alpine 7156. That's what I had. Alpine 7156. I had two 12-inch subwoofers. They were Gym Sound, which was, if I'm not mistaken, like a Rockford Fosgate knockoff or something. I had the acoustic 380 amp that they ran down to 2 ohms, whatever that means. That's what they did. And let's see, I had the little Pioneer tune-up speakers, I think they call them. Anyway, so all this stuff, and then you had your cassette tapes. You'd pop in, and you'd come around the corner, and then boom, 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 coming around, right? I remember very well way back in the day when I was in the police academy. Now this is relevant because there was somebody asked me. There was a guy, and he was chief of police. I won't give it away who this guy was because he probably don't even remember this anyway. But he was a chief of police in Alabama, or ended up being. And he asked me, "What kind of car do you drive?" And at that particular time, I drove a Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo. And I told him, and he's like, "Yeah, I didn't picture you in that." And I'm like, "Well, what do you mean?" He said, "Well, you look like a guy that would drive a beat up Chevelle." And that's kind of, yeah, I could see that. I drove an old Mustang is what I did drive. But the music, here we go. What do you think? So I got thinking about this. So what was the best rock and roll cruising music that you could ever have back in the day? What was it? So I put together some, options here. Now, I was going to rank these, but I don't know that that's a great way to do it because everybody out there is going to have different choices depending on the type of music that you listen to. Now, you will see the kind of music I liked during this time frame. It's going to be pretty obvious. But, whatever your music may be, your list would be much different. So I'm not going to rank them. Now, there is one that is head and shoulders above the rest, and that'll be the last one I talk about. But so let's get into a few of these albums that changed the game when it came to riding around in circles in a parking lot, right? So number one, before I even get into it, let's the one of the ones that popped off in my head first was a little band out of Boston, right? Boston. Their like self-titled album, Boston, was insanely good. So every track, you're going through, More Than a Feeling, right? More Than a Feeling right out of the gate. That was a song that I mean, it meant something to everybody. You go from More Than a Feeling to Peace of Mind, right? And that foreplay, right, into Long Time. Yeah, it's been a long time. You know what I'm talking about. Go right into that. Good stuff. Now, also, I remember Boston was, you could put that tape in and let the whole thing play. It was one of the few. Most of the ones I'm going to talk about are kind of like that, but you could put that in, and it wasn't just one song. You didn't have to fast forward, or try to get to that one song you wanted to hear. It was the whole album, everything, and it would just roll into. And every Boston song, I mean, I love Boston, but every Boston song kind of sounded the same in a way. And they used it for other stuff too. I remember going to the Alabama State Fair, and like that foreplay, Long Time, you would end up with those on what was that ride called? The Super Himalaya. That was it. They had the super, and you went around and around in circles. It was kind of just to make you nauseous. You'd get kind of sick to your stomach after a while going round and round. But they'd play Boston. That would be the music that they'd play. Like, it's been such a long time and all that stuff. And then you got Smoking. Remember that one? That was a good one. And then, of course, the Rock and Roll Band, another great track that was on that one album. The whole thing was great. And later albums were good as well. I mean, you had in the 80s, Boston came out with the, what was it? The one that had Amanda on it. That was a really good one. I can't remember what the name of the album was, but it had Amanda and Cool the Engines and that whole thing. So, yeah, Boston, a great choice if you're looking for an album that you can listen to while cruising a parking lot. Really good stuff. That's fun. So what else do we have? Now, to change genres a little bit. Now, this I first discovered way back in the day at a little place called Skate Town that was in Gardendale, Fultondale line, back where I grew up in Alabama. So, and it was the Gap Band. You Dropped the Bomb on Me, baby. You dropped the bomb on me. You know that one? Now, this is great, especially if you had subwoofers, because you'd had the boom, boom, boom going with the Gap Band. Awesome stuff. And this was, I mean, cruising up and down certain areas. If you dropped the Gap Band, I mean, you just had the rhythm going. The Gap Band, Burn Rubber on Me, another good one. You gotta get up early in the morning. Find me another love. Oh, good stuff. All right. So the Gap Band, definitely you have to put them on the list. And if you're talking about the Gap Band and the old skating rink, you also have to probably talk about Egyptian Lover. If anybody remembers Egyptian Lover, right? Egypt, Egypt, Egyptian Lover, baby. I don't know if y'all remember that or not, but oh boy, good stuff. Now, another one that in this same genre, Sir Mix-a-Lot was kind of big in the 80s. Sir Mix-a-Lot, My Posse's on Broadway, that whole thing. Great stuff. Really cool. Now, we rode up and down the Centerpoint Parkway back in the day, and you would end up, of course, playing that some from time to time. Too Short, another one that was in that area, right? Too Short was pretty good. That was a lot of fun. So these are just a few so far. Now, if you're talking about a single song, just one song that you need, right? One song that you want to drop at the right time, there is only one answer. Aldanova, Fantasy. That's the one, right? If you have one song that you just, and the intro to that song was just so insanely good. You come around the corner and you have that drop of Aldanova Fantasy. If you know, you know. I mean, another one like that was Screaming in the Night by Crocus. I don't know if anybody remembers that one. Screaming in the Night. So good stuff. Those are just like one song on an album, not a whole album. Now, of course, if you're going through this time frame, the 70s, you had Led Zeppelin, right? I mean, you can't go wrong with Led Zeppelin. Pretty much Led Zeppelin 4, great album. It's, Dazed and Confused for so long. It's not true. That whole thing. Stairway to Heaven is always good. Leonard Skinner, also pronounced Leonard Skinner, maybe the greatest album that's ever existed, in my opinion. Simple Man by itself is probably the greatest song that has ever been written. I mean, if you know the words to Simple Man and can sing along and really get into it, we can be friends, you and I, because that's a good one. Freebird, the whole thing. These were great in the 70s. Now Boston would fit in that as well. So you had some of those. Now, as you get into the 80s, you get a little bit more, the hair band type music that I used to absolutely love, like, Motley Crue. You can't go wrong with Shout at the Devil. From In the Beginning, that start in the beginning, that whole thing, going through Shout at the Devil, Looks to Kill, Too Young to Fall in Love. Come on. That's music. That's rocking and rolling. You got Bon Jovi. Now, Bon Jovi had a lot of really, like, early on, you had Runaway, that was really great. In and Out of Love was a good one on 7,800 Degrees Fahrenheit. Slippery When Wet, pretty much the whole album was good. Now, the one, though, that I remember the most, oddly enough, was Bon Jovi, New Jersey. Something about that one fit for me, and I guess it was the age I was at the time. Kind of the culture and the cruising around and all that good stuff. So that one is a lot of fond memories with that. Then you have Rat. You can't go wrong with Rat either. Rat was really good. Out of the Cellar, fantastic. Invasion of Your Privacy was good too. You're in Love. I will say this. This was not on the Out of the Cellar. It was on the Invasion of Your Privacy, I think, album. But You're in Love it was the song itself was great, because I never forget this. And I know a lot of songs used to do this, but especially with that one song, I remember how it went from one speaker to another speaker. Like, it started in one speaker and then boom, it would hit. It would just like wake you up. It did that in You're in Love. And also Wanted Man did the same thing at the very beginning. That that whole thing. Good stuff. So, these are just in the 80s, were really kind of cool, cruising around type stuff, So Appetite for Destruction, Guns N' Roses, a great one. You know what I'm saying? Really good stuff. Now, other genres of music you could get into, some of the things, I was always listening, Prince was always great. Michael Jackson from time to time, I mean, come on. The Thriller album was, I had it on vinyl, used to listen to it. Now, my choice of the songs I liked a little bit different. My favorites, it wasn't the Beat It and Billie Jean kind of thing. I like PYT, Pretty Young Things, Repeat After Me, and nah, 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 the whole thing. That was a good one. I also liked Human Nature, great track. So, Prince, Michael Jackson, always good, really good stuff. Enjoyed every song that they came out with. Always good. People like the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, good cruising songs. Maybe not my go-to all the time, but every now and again, you would sort of go to this, different things. So those were some good ones as well. So as you can see, there are a lot of choices you can get into here and a lot of different things. But just so that I'm on, people understand, there is one album that was above all better than any of the rest as far as cruising. There was one. And I always put this at the very top of the list. And it was the one you could, like I mentioned about Boston earlier, you could just pop it in and just let it play. The whole thing. every track was top notch. Now, you say, oh, no, there's got to be one throwaway track in there somewhere. Not on this one, there wasn't. Now, I don't know if you can guess which one I'm talking about here or what the album is, but I'm going to go through it. And I have a track listing here that we're going to go through each track. And this is by far, there is no, I don't think there's a lot of argument as far as, that moment in time, riding around in the parking lot, the best music to listen to me, Back in Black by ACDC. No question. To me. That's me. Now, ACDC had already been, at the top of their game before this. Bon Scott was their lead singer, and of course, famously, he passed away. He basically, I think, drank himself to death. Was kind of the story I remember hearing. And Ozzy Osbourne, actually, which I should mention Ozzy here. I mean, the Prince of Darkness, of course. Blizzard of Oz, I should have mentioned that earlier. Flying High Again. One of the, oh my gosh, that I should have mentioned. See, this is hard to do. You can't really get them all. But anyway, he wrote, I think, Suicide Solution about Bon Scott. Anyway, it was not about suicide per se, just about what had happened to Bon Scott and the tragedy that it was. So anyway, Back in Black, ACDC, so awesome. So Bon Scott had died. They bring in Brian Johnson to be and Brian Johnson does something that it's hard for me to understand. He does this. Tom Kiefer from Cinderella does this. And there are other people that can get in this weird falsetto like that. I'm sorry if that I don't sound like they do, but it's this it's crazy falsetto that seems like it would hurt your throat after a while. They do it amazingly well, right? So he comes in, takes off, and you have this crazy album that is the best. I mean, you don't have a bad track. Okay, so Back in Black, ACDC, side A, track 1. Hell's Bells, right? Hell's Bells, right off the bat. Boom, boom. I mean, they still play this at NFL stadiums. They play it at college stadiums. At the University of Alabama, Bryant-Denny Stadium, Roll Tide. They play on every third down. You're boom, boom. If Alabama's on defense, third down comes up, bong, bong. That means Hell's Bells is coming, right? They're about to let the dogs loose, so to speak. Hell's Bells, amazing song. Then, all right. So side A, track 2. You see, I'm getting excited here. Shoot to Thrill. Shoot to Thrill. I mean, this one I think was in an Iron Man movie. Even I mean, Shoot to Thrill, fantastic song. You're not losing any steam. So as you go through track 1 to track 2 on side A, no steam, lost. And what do you do for money, honey? Where do you get your kicks? What do you do for money, honey? I mean, that's track 3. So already you're rolling. It's so good. So that's track 3. Track 4 on side A, giving a dog a bone, y'all know this. If you know ACDC, you know this. You're not losing any traction. It's just rolling, right? Then, of course, the one that's a little controversial, right? But at the time, it was a really cool one, and it was kind of going to get you down in a little, slow it down a little bit, and it's like got a little groove to it, But what it's talking about is maybe a little controversial, but let me put my love into you, babe. That whole thing. Good stuff. All right. So then we go to side B. Side A, I mean, it's already you're just rolling on. Now, back in the day, I should mention, we had to switch sides. A CD, or they don't even make CDs anymore. Now it's all like Apple Music, I guess, or Spotify or whatever. I mean, you listen to things like, I don't even know. I guess you just look up the song you want to hear and play it. But now a lot of people way back when, 70s, had the 8 tracks. And I remember 8 tracks. 8 tracks were a pain to try to get to where you wanted to on the song. But, they were what they were. I remember them in the 70s. They were around, but mostly what I had were cassette tapes. Now, cassette tapes, you would have to flip, right? So you take it out and then flip it to the other side. So side B. Now, CDs didn't do that, just played all the way through. And now, of course, you don't even, the cars don't even come with CD players anymore, I don't think. I don't even think they have like any except, I mean, you hook your phone up and play. It's so much different than it used to be. But anyway, so when you had a tape deck, you'd have to flip it. So when we flip it, clip, eject, flip, put it on the other side. All right. So then you get Back in Black, right? Side B, track 1, Back in Black. You're still rolling. Very famous song. Back in Black. It's so good stuff. All right. So then You Shook Me All Night Long, which was probably, of all the songs on this album, that was the big hit. You Shook Me All Night Long. I would say that's the one that people think, it was, I think it was actually a hit. A lot of these weren't like, chart songs or whatever, but they were just, everybody knew them and they were great. And it sold the whole album, right? Because, a lot of the charts were mostly popish kind of music anyway back then. So anyway, so you have You Shook Me All Night Long, then Have a Drink on Me. Great tune. Great tune, especially later on. If you were 21, going out to the clubs, and hanging out, Have a Drink on Me. Shake a Leg was next. Shake a Leg. It's so good. And then the last song, which they saved the best for last, at least as far as my opinion, because if I had to choose one, oh gosh, it's hard to do though. But if you had to choose one song on Back in Black, Rock and Roll Ain't Noise Pollution was the and if you ever went to see them in concert, at the end of that song they do the cannons, and they will aim the cannons and boom, and it's I saw them in concert way back when, and they will turn that cannon and it just boom blows up, and it's really amazing. But there you go. All right, so that's just a few of these that I could sort of choose from as we go here. Some of the, and I don't know, I left some stuff out. I didn't even get into any country music or anything, because I mean we used to really like Hank Williams Jr. back in the day. George Strait's always had really good stuff. Willie Nelson, come on. I mean, I didn't even get into country because back then I was listening to more of the rock and roll type stuff, maybe a little bit more soul with the Gap Band, and things along, like that. So anyway, good stuff. These were just a few of the ones that I enjoyed, that I thought were, now you tell me, I mean, what were your favorites? What were some of the ones that you liked? That's just for me back in the day, riding around, doing the cruising, these were some of the tunes that I would listen to and really enjoy. So you let me know which ones that you listen to and which ones were the best. And I know that your number one will be ACDC Back in Black too. So, well, I hope everyone has a good day. Thank you for listening.